I'm Nicole Matthews, corporate America dropout turned entrepreneur and owner of the Henley Company, an event, travel, and lifestyle management firm. It wasn't that long ago that I was dreading my drive to my fancy corporate job each day or felt disenfranchised with the work I was doing. In 2007, I jumped off the corporate escalator and directly into the elevator of opportunity. Today, I'm an author, speaker, educator, and serial asker. I wholeheartedly believe that your life changes when you start creating your own opportunities and making big asks. Hands down, the business and life I have today is 100% the product of giving myself permission to design the life I want to live. It was always my dream to work at the Olympics, and by making a big ask, that dream became a reality. I now have multiple Olympic projects to add to my life resume. I created the Big Ask podcast to share these best practices with you. Whether you're an entrepreneur hungry for revenue-generating tips or an individual restless to make a significant change, the life you want to live could be just one big ask away. Get ready to be entertained by real-life stories, no-filter conversations, and inspired by the daily hustle. So let's get started. This is the Big Ask Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Big Ask Podcast. I'm Nicole Matthews, and I welcome you back to another episode. It is a thrill, let me tell you, to be able to talk to my good friend, Jack Kelly. This is a guy who, when you look in a dictionary under relationship king, I think Jack Kelly's name is it's just your picture is just there. There is literally nobody in San Diego who can navigate relationships, create relationships better than Jack Kelly. So I am so thrilled that you said yes to my invitation to be a guest, because I know we're going to have a lot of teaching here on how to be the relationship prince, because you are the king, but I will say the prince and princess of San Diego. So Jack Kelly, welcome to the Big Ask Podcast.
It's great to be here, and thank you for the flattering introduction. That was great.
It's my pleasure. So you and I have known each other many a year, and our worlds have intersected in several different ways. So our first interaction is that we're both alums of the University of San Diego, and you as an undergrad and a master's degree, and my just only master's degree from USD, but our work in alumni relations. So I started my career as the assistant director of alumni relations at USD, which was probably the best first grown-up job you could ever have, like in a lifetime. It was incredible, right? And I got to meet amazing people like you, and then ultimately you became the director of alumni relations at USD. So let's kind of rewind the tape a little bit and get into the history of Jack Kelly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, my history, it's in San Diego. It started at USD, right? So came here from LA. I'm an LA boy. Don't hold it against me, but I'm an LA boy, born and raised. And our family used to come down here for vacation in San Diego. And was just having this conversation with my dad last night. Someone asked me, how did you come to go to USD? I said, well, I applied to Loyola Marymount. I applied to Cal State Northridge because I lived in Northridge. And then I had a friend's sister who said I had to apply to USD because she was going there and she loved it. And so I did. And I'd never been there, but I'd been to San Diego. So ended up going to school there, obviously, but it was just had an amazing experience, and was fortunate to meet my mate, my bride there, Sue Kelly, and Sue Ventimiglia is her maiden name. And from there, I actually took a couple of years, lived in the Midwest, and traveled all over the country, which was an amazing experience for my fraternity, and visiting college towns everywhere. And then I came home to LA, and Sue came back off the road herself, and we got married and moved back to San Diego. So I've been here ever since, and in a variety of roles, mostly in business to business sales. So B2B services, to be exact, which is probably some of the hardest things to sell. They're usually mission critical systems or services that you're providing to a customer that they don't have a competency in. So it's a hard thing to articulate the value and gain their trust in order for them to move forward. So, but it's been a wonderful experience for me, and worked with hundreds of companies all over San Diego in that space. So it's been great.
Yeah. That's awesome. And
Mhm.
at the core of everything you do is relationships, as I said before.
Yeah,
So, going back to your time at USD as the
yeah,
director of alumni relations,
yeah,
I mean, there's no job that requires relationships really more than
right.
an alumni director. So, talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what that tenure was like for you, and what did you learn in that role?
Well, I had huge shoes to fill.
Mhm.
You worked for John Trifoletti, and
Yep.
an amazing guy who really sculpted the role
Hmm.
at USD
Hmm.
and built it up. And of course, I came in there and said, okay, let's take this foundation and let's do something more with it. And what I quickly found, and what was kind of natural for me was it didn't matter the generation or where somebody was from USD. They cared so deeply about that place, and to me it became incredibly evident with the people that I was fortunate enough to work with, is that the focus was to honor your relationships, and it's the best way I can
Hmm.
put it. And I met thousands of alumni all over the country during that time with kind of this shared passion, but also a shared value set that I
Hmm.
found um, really to be something that stuck with me even past my
Hmm.
time at USD. And for me at USD, it was about, let's build something sustainable. It's nice to see that a lot of the things that I helped put in place when I was there are still there,
Hmm. Hmm.
with our alumni board, with the approach to it. But also that some of the things that we started have changed and they've gotten better. So, and that was really one of the core things I always talked about was, we don't do change for change sake. We do change in order to make things
Hmm.
better. And I say, if that was a legacy I left at USD, I feel like I did a good job with that. So
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
It's a pretty special place, USD. I'm
Hmm.
very grateful for my foundation that it gave me personally and professionally.
Yep.
And one of the great lessons that Triff, as we referred to him, would often say
Yep.
to us in alumni relations, and you've heard me say this before, but people support what they help to create.
That's right.
And when he was referring to the importance of getting people on committees and to be
Yeah.
engaged in a project so that they ultimately are your best ambassadors outside of the university,
Yeah.
and that really always stuck with me, and I think it's a really
Hmm.
powerful lesson, as we're on, especially in my line of work in events and yours in sales,
Hmm. Yeah.
getting people to help create it is the best
Yeah.
way for them to support it at the
Oh,
same time.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, I also learned, as far as their engagement um, level was equal to their willingness, and the success of what their engagement was equal to their willingness to be accountable for it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times what I learned in nonprofit is, folks often are given a hall pass because they're a volunteer. And
Mm-hmm.
yet the best volunteers out there are the ones that want to build something, want to create something that's sustainable, and they're willing to say, I'm in, and what do I have to do in order to move the needle, not just participate in what's
Yeah.
going on. And that's the
Right.
part of USD that was cool, was to find this group of alums and administrators, et cetera, that were willing to put their skin in the game and say, i'm
Mm-hmm.
i'm going to do this, and you can hold me accountable. Let's set goals. Let's not just sit around and sip sodas together. Let's
Right.
accomplish something. And that's
Mm.
that's what I loved about that experience at USD, was really seeing that and how gratifying that was for myself
Yeah.
as well as the other folks involved.
Sure. And not just being volunteers who have it as a resume
Hmm.
place, and
Right.
you and I've talked about that
Yeah.
before. We are currently on a board together, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about in a little bit. But there are people who are professional board members who just have it
Yeah.
to make their LinkedIn profile look
Yeah.
better, and
Absolutely.
are actually working, and how frustrating
Yeah.
that is for the rest of us who are really committed to working.
It's true. And we went through at USD, and there were difficult conversations I had with people who had been on the board for a while, and
Hmm.
said, look, here's what the expectation is. Here's what you all have agreed to. It's not happening. I
Hmm.
understand you have other things in your life and that, but what we need right now from our board members is this. If you can't do it, I completely understand.
Hmm.
We appreciate your service, but we do need to make space for those that are willing to commit to that. And,
Yeah.
those are healthy conversations, as difficult as they were to have, but it was for the
Yeah.
best interest of the organization as well.
Definitely. So your tenure at USD comes to an end, and then you
Hmm.
decide to branch out on your own.
Hmm.
right? Was that the next step for you?
Actually, I went back into an industry I was in, HR outsourcing industry, and it's what convinced me to go on my own, quite frankly.
Yeah. The
So
universe has a funny way of
it
putting us
has
in
its
those
way.
situations, right?
I always knew I had the entrepreneurial gene in me,
Mm-hmm.
and but I, quite frankly, was scared to do it. You know, you start having kids and you start doing all those things. And so I went to work for this company. I got a good offer after I got my master's at USD. It
Mm-hmm.
was an industry I was interested in and familiar with because I had had about 10 years experience prior. And I went into it, and it was a publicly held company that was extremely poorly run. And I went through 4 bosses in less than 2 years, and leadership change at the top, and then the company ended up getting sold. Um, and then about 2 years later, at the end of 2008, not the best time to start a business.
Oh, yes, you and I both. Thank you.
That's when I jumped in. So
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Why not?
why
Why
not,
make it
right?
easy on ourselves, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. So, what was the business that you created?
business name of the business is the Corley Group, and the side story on that is Corley, Ireland, is where the Kelly family is from. So that's the genesis of the name. There was no real big strategy around what it meant
Yeah.
or what, you know, symbolism and that sort of thing. It was just, quite frankly, really important to me. So
Yeah.
that's where Grandpa Jack was from. So anyhow, so saw a need in the market at time 2008. Lots of businesses were struggling, shrinking. Um, and it wasn't a good time. And what was the number one challenge that they had? Their number one challenge was selling. Their number one challenge was finding new customers. Their number one challenge was saying, okay, I'm really not very good at this. How do I
Mm-hmm.
create something that is sustainable and scalable for my business during a tough time? So I stumbled into it, but I have always either been in sales or sales leadership roles. And so I was familiar with their plight.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for my dad for 7 years prior to coming to San Diego, and we worked with small businesses almost exclusively. And I know the stresses that a business owner has who's not only in charge of operations, but has to figure out how to find revenue. And
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest challenges for them, is to find revenue on a consistent basis and maybe hire somebody and make sure they're hiring the right person in order to do so. So that's where I found my niche and started the Corley Group.
Yeah. And sales is just, it can be such a stumbling block for some people, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it feels like you either are born to be a great salesperson or you're not.
right,
And I
right.
would imagine that, the company that you had was really about helping people to overcome that
Yep,
mental block, because it really is
exactly
more
what it is.
probably mental than anything else, isn't it?
It is because, you know, people start a business because they love doing something, or they're passionate about it. They want to do it, and they kind of think, you know, the whole field of dreams, build it and they will come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that you have to keep reminding people about what you do, how you do it, why it's better than perhaps your competition, or why it's something completely new that they
Yeah.
should really consider doing. And you're absolutely right. You know, some folks have said to me, "You're a natural born salesperson," and I said, I'm not. I mean, I love people and all that, but you know, at the time when I started selling and you had to dial for dollars, the phone in the cradle was the most intimidating thing to me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I would teach people, make that first call and never put that handset down, and you'll be fine. You'll get going. But I did have to let them know that some of the best business leaders, but also some of the best sales professionals, don't have to be extroverted. They don't have to have big personalities. It's how genuine they are. And that's really what I
Mm-hmm.
taught folks, is it's how genuine you are in your approach to solving that person's problem, and how much you understand their business in order to help them sell it, that separates you from everybody else. And
Yeah.
that can be a lot less uh, cumbersome for someone who maybe is quieter than it is for someone who is extroverted, that wants to move on to the next fun and exciting thing. Someone who's willing
Mm-hmm.
to take the time to explain, to listen, to understand, and come up with a solution. And so I do work with people a lot on that, and it's a challenge for them. But once they
Mm-hmm.
start seeing that there is a way and a process and a system you can put in place to help you stay accountable and sustain it,
Mm-hmm.
they usually have pretty good success. So
Yeah. Would you say at the heart of it though is the word relationship? Do you think that that really is
Yeah.
the magic, the fairy dust?
It is the fairy dust, and it's often just thrown around too much. And I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier that's that the concept of, truly honoring relationships. And sometimes the best way to honor a relationship is tell somebody you're not a good fit,
Mm-hmm.
that this isn't the right solution for you, that I have another company that might be better for you because you've taken the time to really understand who they are, what they do, what they're trying to accomplish. And
Mm-hmm.
you talk to a lot of people, whoa, 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 why would you ever cut somebody out of your pipeline? And I always tell them, I said, what I want you to do is, figure out how I can narrow the pipeline
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
versus saying I can help everybody and
Right.
dilute your message versus I really understand who it is that benefits from what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be able to get through this process a little bit more quickly and efficiently and get them where they want to go.
Yeah. I mean, I have often said, like, don't be afraid of the unsubscribe, because
Yeah,
the
totally.
unsubscribe, right, is just moving those people out of the way, because you're
Yeah.
taking a big pool and you're unsubscribing, and now
Yep.
you're left with the good meat,
Yep.
hopefully.
Yeah.
So, those kinds of things, people take it personal, like, oh no, I had, 6 people unsubscribed from my newsletter. And it's like, great, get
Yeah.
those people out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. I
That's
mean,
what I
then now you're
tell them.
not marketing to somebody who doesn't need or want your services.
Yeah, there's a reason that a sales funnel starts like this and goes like this,
Mm-hmm.
is that through each stage, which you need to know what those stages are that you're taking people through, you're trying to qualify people out as much as you're trying to qualify them in,
Mm-hmm.
because we only have limited time. And it's same with them. And we want to make sure they don't walk away from somebody say, boy, I went through all this process. I bought this thing. I'm unhappy. And that is an exponential effect on your business, because the other part of the business that I do is I do customer loyalty surveys for people, to understand who their best customers are, why they are attached to them. And again, I use that data to help them narrow who they do business with. What are the industries? What are the types of buyers that they resonate
Mm-hmm.
best with, so they don't waste their own or anybody else's time.
Yeah, definitely. How have you seen the sales process change, perhaps in
Yeah.
the last decade of owning your own business, or even just throughout your career? I mean, have you noticed sort of an evolution of that process, or
Yeah.
how has technology and social media and all those things, those tools, sort of helped or hurt?
Yeah, it's really a good question, and absolutely it's changed. In the business to business space, it's affected it quite a bit. Obviously, people can do research online, they can do all those sorts of things about your business, but part of it is that we control that narrative. A lot of folks say, "Well, what can I do? They've researched me, all that sort of thing." But what have they researched? They've
Mm-hmm.
researched customer experience. How are you controlling the customer experience there? They've researched the white papers you've put out. They've researched the case studies you developed, or the marketing brochures that you have out
Mm-hmm.
online, or videos, or that's what they're looking at. So how are you controlling that narrative? How is that putting out what you want to know about the business? So that, I think, a lot of people worry about that. I think that's the most positive thing, because that is something you have
Yeah.
somewhat control over, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's been the good part. It also can speed up sales in what are generally complex sales. If you're selling to, and what I work with people on is a lot of times they're selling to multiple stakeholders. So in other words, it's not just selling to one person. You've got the CFO, the CEO, you've got the procurement person, of course, and the business unit person that's in
Mm-hmm.
charge, a director or a VP. And so you've got different personalities that you have to sell to. And now that is where I think it has changed the most, is that has become much more of a talent that people have to develop, to say, I'm selling my services to a CFO. That person, she cares about this set of issues. The CEO, she cares about a different set of issues. And
Mm-hmm.
the person who's running the division, he cares about something completely different, but it's all about the same service that
Yeah.
you're providing. And that
Right.
talent is something I see a lot of folks skip on. They learn their
Mm.
product, they learn the value, they even learn about a really good um, way to present themselves to people in a value added manner, but they don't think about the different people that are going to be involved and what message they need to hear and what problems you need to solve of theirs in order to be effective. So
Sure.
that's changed a lot as far as that goes, I think. So
And to that point, kind of paying attention to communication styles as well. You
totally.
know, you might have
Hmm.
the CEO who just wants bottom line rapid fire, and
Right.
then, you know, the COO might be somebody that you need to give a longer narrative to. And
Yeah.
so again, taking the time to sort of be with those people, understand how they want that information
Hmm.
deliver to them. Don't go
Yep.
into the CEO with a long narrative if he's going to be bored, distracted with something else because you're taking too much time to get to the point,
Yeah. And I
right?
remember when I was first being taught how to say, find the economic buyer, which we all have to do. Another person that's writing the check. We all need to
Mm-hmm.
find that person, that sort of thing. But what I've seen a lot of sales professionals do, then just focus on that one person. So I guess the best story example I have of this that happened to me, unfortunately, is selling my service, selling payroll and HR services, is to the company that does all, quite honestly, the samples at Costco, right? They
Okay.
have thousands of employees. And so this was a big deal. They're based here in San Diego. They were at the time. And the CEO and CFO sold on what we were going to do. The payroll manager seemed very positive, and she had one question for me. And I said, let me find the answer to that question. I don't want to say yes right now, but let me find the answer to that question. Came back, gave him the answer, and I thought everything's set. We're good to go. And I delay. I'm like, why is this not closing? What's going on? What happened was that one question from that person was her big sticking point. And all I did was provide an answer, but I never dug deeper with her. I never took the
Mm,
time to understand why that was so important, what her hesitation about changing was. She ultimately was the accountable person for making
mhm,
payroll happen, getting people enrolled in benefits, doing all those things. And I focused on the CEO and CFO, and
mm,
she was the one who determined if I got the deal or not, and I didn't
mm.
know that. And
Yeah.
so that's where I learned that lesson was, okay, we need to treat each one of these people on their own and not make
Hmm.
assumptions just because the most important person in the room is excited about our solution.
Yeah, definitely. How did you learn how to be highly proficient with relationship development? Do you think that's
Oh,
something that's learned? Is that a skill that you learned, or is
yeah.
that just a nature nurture sort of question?
I, as with most things, I think it's a combination of both,
Yeah.
right? I've made enough mistakes with that, where I've gone too fast trying to push something through. Where, in the example I just gave, I also feel like it was one of those things where, if you look at the influence of your parents, and
Hmm.
quite frankly, with my dad who's with me here right now, and just I worked for him for 7 years, and a lot of times when people work with their parents, they're like, just couldn't
Yeah.
do it. I
Right.
enjoy it. I loved working with my dad,
Hmm.
and part of it was because we got along well. We thought similarly, but it was interesting to see him as more of a peer than a dad. And I saw how he interacted with customers. I saw how
Mm.
he, really truly valued that idea of let me find the right solution over just quickly getting some money
Hmm.
in the door. And to me, it was he never was going to be the richest man in the world financially, but you talk to anybody that knew him and they have nothing but amazing things to say about him. And that was valuable, and that always came back to him. So if something was going on, he always had someone who could back him up on the claim we were making. Did we do a good job? Were we able to deliver, and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Never had to worry, never had to do that. And to
Hmm.
me, that idea of, I talk about it a lot. Matter one time I presented some students at USD, is this idea of
Hmm.
honoring your relationships. And the best example I can give of that in my life is my roommate in college. He's from Greece. And when I first was starting my consulting business, I see this name come across LinkedIn, Spiros Konidaris. I'm like, there are not many of those in this world.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, what's up, Spiros? It's your old roommate from freshman year. And we literally hadn't talked since we had graduated over 20 years earlier. And he said, oh, I'm looking for some help. I'm looking to start an office. Let me know if you run into anybody. I said, happy to do it. Glad to hear things are well. Well, then a day later, he said, hey, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, And he said, I've been interviewing people left and right. And he said, it looks like you're a good fit. And he said, it would be really great if this worked out because I know I can trust you.
Mm.
I hadn't talked to him in 20 years, over 20
Yeah.
years. And it's one of those things where I was
Mm-hmm.
honored, first of all, and flattered and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I shared with you before we started, he's been my client for 11 years now. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
amazing.
so
Yeah.
that's,
No, you can't put a price tag on that.
and
That's
that's,
that
a lot of
trust.
that is
Yeah.
nurture. But on the flip side of that,
Mm-hmm.
I also learned in the business world when I was getting too anxious, trying to hit a number, trying to do things. And really what it came down to was that was my shortcoming. I hadn't done enough work to fill my pipeline with the right
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to give myself confidence. So there's another Jack Kellyism. Confidence is a full pipeline, right?
Yes.
The fuller your pipeline, the more clear you are on the decisions you make. The skinnier your pipeline, the more desperate you get. And then you sacrifice things like relationships, good discovery, and all those things. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's important that activity part still is important to this day. We can't rely on inbound. We can't rely on all those things. You've got to build
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So that's what
Yeah.
that taught me as well.
Is there a book of Jack Kellyisms coming?
There is,
Forthcoming?
matter of fact. And a matter of fact, the title is Confidence is a Full Pipeline. So,
Perfect.
right.
Not already written, in the
No,
process or
in
already
the
written?
process in many forms, not already
Okay.
written, but yeah, a
All
lot of
right.
different, pieces put together already. So
Good.
it is something that it does change. And this is the thing as a sales professional, as a sales leader, is that if you have a full pipeline of good opportunities with the right people, it changes the decision making throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm.
It changes how the CEO looks at things. It changes how the CFO looks at things. It changes how
Mm-hmm.
operations, how management, sales management, and your team. It changes the whole organization. So the responsibility of sales to an organization is great. And that starts with good activity
Yeah.
and good prospects.
And I think as long as you can sell, you should always be employed, right?
Yeah,
It's one of them,
absolutely.
you are one of
Yeah,
the, they are, that you should be the last person they get rid of in an organization if you're the person bringing in revenue, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
is 100% the deal. And if it's
Right.
obvious when you're not, that's the good news and bad news about sales. When things
Yeah.
aren't going well,
Yeah.
you've got nowhere
Right.
to hide.
No,
Um,
I know it's, I have a friend who, used to work for Hyatt, and she went from being the like number one salesperson of Hyatt, got the incentive trip,
yeah. Oh yeah.
the big experience, the big award, the gold key, all the
Yeah.
things. And literally by the next year she was gone because it was
Yeah.
2008, I think, and the economy had tanked.
Yeah.
And you went, oh,
Yeah.
you're only as valuable in sales as the last quarter, basically,
Absolutely. What
right?
have you done for
Yeah.
me lately?
Yep. What have you done for
Yeah.
me lately? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rocky road all of the time. So
Yeah.
what are you seeing in terms of business now, in this new era that we are in? I mean, I don't think it's a blip. I think we got to get
Mm-mm.
comfortable in being uncomfortable right now in business. And so how are you
Yeah.
advising clients, and kind of what are you seeing with all of that?
Yeah. It's a good question. I run my own networking group, and once a month we have our Zoom call now. And I asked him, I went and just kind of get a survey, and what was, of the group of where things were. Some are down 80% in their
Mm-hmm.
business. Some are up 50%. And we had the whole gamut. So it isn't just one, not everything is horrible, but for the ones that are struggling, what it's really come back to is, okay, how have I prepared myself for this? Do I have
Mm-hmm.
things in place? Have I kind of lived off of one way of bringing in business? Have I
Mm-hmm.
ignored my online presence? Have I ignored at the time going to networking events? Have I perhaps ignored my partners? I
Yeah.
haven't nurtured those relationships. And so what I'm seeing with folks is you have people who've been doing what they do for a while and have a pretty good system in place. But what the biggest struggle for them is, I can't get out in front of my clients. And as great as Zoom is for seeing and talking to each other, there's still something that's missing for them. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these folks, they didn't think this would ever happen. And so their comfort with Zoom, their comfort with doing things virtually is probably the biggest stumbling block I see beyond the economic realities that we all have. So
Yeah.
what, again, this goes back to those basics. Who do I sell best to? Who do I fit with the best? How much activity do I need to be doing in order to get the results that I'm looking for? And right now it's more.
Yeah.
And what I see is a lot of folks doing less. And
Hmm.
if there's any time to do more, it's now. You need to be value added. You need to be sensitive to their situation. You need to make sure that you're checking in on them as much as you're trying to get a meeting with them.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate balance, but you have to do more of that. And
Hmm.
I think people need to start getting to that place versus saying, okay, maybe in a few weeks it'll be different and I'll be able to
Yeah.
do what I
Yeah.
used to do.
Right. And Zoom has been great, and I mean, thank
Yeah.
goodness for it. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine if
Oh,
this would have happened 10 or 15 years ago when this technology didn't exist. I mean,
right.
if we're literally sending letters to each other,
Yeah.
I mean, we're how grateful we are, as hard as this chapter
Yeah.
is, to have the tools that we do have in order
Yeah.
to bridge the gaps. I mean, we
Oh,
really
yeah.
are lucky with that. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
It's
You
amazing. Just,
hmm
the miracle
But
of
it
LinkedIn is
yeah,
amazing. I mean,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. But it
it's,
also speaks to the need, I think, to continue to be creative. You don't want to
mhm.
just rely on
Yeah.
Zoom because everybody's doing Zoom. So
Yep.
what's the next thing I can
Right.
do in terms of getting in front of my clients,
Yep.
that isn't just Zoom, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have another, you look at co-opetition, right? Do you have that opportunity to do that with somebody you would
Hmm.
normally see as a competitor of yours?
Hmm.
In this situation, truly, how can we cooperate together to benefit ourselves as well, give maybe an exponential benefit to our potential customers? Something
Yeah.
I'm doing with another sales consultant um, is we're developing a new, mastermind group, and that group is going to be focused on CEOs who have responsibility for sales, and more of them do right now than they did a few
Hmm.
months ago,
Hmm.
because they've had to let people go and all that sort of stuff. How are they going to do this? It's going to be all virtual, what we're going to be
Yeah.
doing with them. A lot of these groups generally have been in person. They had to be regionalized. We're not going to have those limits with this. So there's this
Hmm.
opportunity there to have someone with a perspective from the Midwest and the Northwest connect with each other and benefit from each other. So we're trying to do something different, and then also give them tools that haven't given. So we're innovating in that and saying, two of us together equals three or four or whatever that
Yeah.
is with
Right.
respect to the value we can give these folks. So that's the sort of activity that's fun, right?
Yeah.
It stimulates
Right.
the brain and that sort of thing. Is a different take on something that's been going on for a while.
Yeah. So if you had somebody who was just getting into sales and you had to give them
Yeah.
one piece of advice, what is that piece of advice?
Um, Gosh, one piece of advice. Um, be prompt. Yeah.
Be prompt.
Be prompt, be professional, and
Uh-huh.
be consistent.
Hmm.
And to me, as simple as those are, what I see sales professionals lacking right now is that consistency on what they do. And if
Hmm.
that's, whether that be the combination of cold calling, current client follow-up, doing their own work on social media, et cetera, whatever those things are, is the consistency of that is what gets you through times like this. And as someone just coming into sales, I would also let them know right now is an amazing opportunity for sales. And the reason being, companies are looking to make changes right now
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
of the reality. So your competition that is in 20% or 50% of your territory right now, they're at risk.
Hmm.
They're at risk right now. People are evaluating everything that they're doing inside of their business. They're evaluating all of those things because they have to. It's their responsibility in order to keep their business going. You have a wonderful opportunity if you truly take the time to dig into what are their struggles right now, what are their goals, and how you help them get to those goals. So if you can
Hmm.
understand that piece and really be empathetic and really drive towards that outcome, you have a wonderful opportunity right now, which a lot of
Yeah.
folks might not see.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. How do you organize yourself in terms of all of these relationships and touch points that you need to do with your clients? So what is your process for that? Are you
Yeah. Um,
do you
Big
use this? Are
believer in
there certain
using tools.
tools? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. What
big
tools do you
believer in it.
use?
Well,
Yeah.
first, I use a CRM, so customer
Okay.
relationship management system. I have to, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that basically has my database of everyone. It has every piece of information on them that I have, and then I utilize it from a okay, what's the status of where they are, and I've moved from calling it a sales process to a sales experience. What's the experience that I would want somebody to go through? A lot of us talk about customer experience and that sort of thing. The sales experience is one part of that
Mm-hmm.
overall customer experience. And we need to look at it that way because you want to have that
Mm-hmm.
sales experience be as good or better as that customer experience once they come on board. So
Mm-hmm.
with the CRM, I can stay on top of at least as I'm nurturing people. And they have everything from assigning yourself a task and integrating it into your calendar to I create different cadences on a monthly basis of who I'm reaching out to and what's the topic I'm reaching out to them on.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this is basic blocking and tackling from a time management standpoint, because if you don't do it and if you don't intentionally put it down, it does not happen. And
Yep.
especially once you get busy, if you don't hold these appointments that you've made in order to do these things, you will forget and you will
Yeah.
let those, and I still do, still have things that
Mm-hmm.
get in the way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
as human as anybody else, and that's why I need the tools. And they are simple to use. You don't have to overcook them, over bake them. There's so much functionality in some of these. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
use the basics to keep you on track with a customer and understand when's the next follow-up and what does that look like for me. So
Yeah.
that's the main thing I use is that CRM to do that for me, because when I get busy, I know each morning before I bring up email, I bring up my CRM and I say, what's going on? What am I supposed to,
Yeah.
what's going to drive outcomes for me today before
Mm-hmm.
I get into the administrative stuff that I have to deal with every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. No, that's
that to me
great.
is the key one.
Yeah, definitely. And then in terms of just staying motivated, what are you reading? What are you listening to in
Mhm.
terms of podcasts? Are you a podcast,
Not really a
fan?
podcast guy, but there's a uh, email I get every day. It's called Smart Brief on Sales. And Smart
Okay.
Brief does a lot of different briefs on HR and all that sort of stuff. Smart Brief on Sales, it's one of those things that pulls together some of the greatest minds in sales. And it's terrific. I use a lot of their
Mm-hmm.
articles when I'm posting on,
Mm-hmm.
on social media and that sort of thing. And it keeps
Yeah.
me on top of it. There's also another really terrific organization that I would consider a competitor, but they deal with much larger companies than I call them. It's the Sales Benchmark Index. I would definitely, they have outstanding content and things that you can pull from every single day. Those are the kind of my daily feeds that I work on. I'm trying to remember the name of the book I'm reading right now, but it's Peter Lencioni, or is it Patrick Lencioni book? So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all about, it's all about, a lot of these things come back to systems and how you get your executive team to follow those processes in order to have frank,
Mm-hmm.
honest, open conversations to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in the spirit of the big ask, let's talk about big
Yeah.
asks that you've either had to make or what was your process for sort of gearing up
Hmm.
and preparing to make that big ask, and
Yeah.
what were the outcomes?
Yeah. That's a good one. And I've been thinking about this. I'm like, shoot, there's been a lot of asks in my life. The biggest was
Yeah.
when I asked Sue to marry me, but
Oh, that's so sweet. I just interviewed an event guru recently,
yeah,
somebody I have great admiration for, and his answer was the same. I think that's
yeah.
lovely that I've had two husbands now say the biggest ask was. It's funny, the women aren't saying that,
They're
but
not
I guess
saying
because
that.
they
They didn't
haven't
have to,
asked.
they may
They
not
only
have
had to
had
answer.
yeah, but
Yeah, yeah. So
some
that's
guys
lovely.
we'd welcome
That's
that if they did. So
Yes.
it'd take the pressure
Yeah.
off. But um,
So besides Sue, who is
yeah,
wonderful,
yeah.
what other ask?
I would say that the first one was when I started my consulting business. So I had, in addition to Spiros, it was, am I worth what what I want to charge? Right. That was my
Mm-hmm.
biggest struggle was
Yeah.
what's my value? And I remember I had lunch with a guy up in Orange County, and he was showing me his models and all this because I was trying to develop mine. It was very early on. And he said, what are you charging? And I told him, he said, why are you only charging that much? I'm like, that seems
Yeah.
like a lot of money. I mean, I can't ask people for more money.
Right.
He said, and he just looked at me and he said, why not? Then he
Mm-hmm.
told me what he charged today. I went, oh my God, are you kidding me? And
Yeah.
so when I did that, I was going to work for, I had been referred in by someone for my master's program at USD into this accounting firm. And what they did was they did large government organization, a federal government organization audits, believe it or not, those do happen. And,
Mhm.
and they needed help with continuing to grow their sales organization. So it ended up being my largest contract to date. And now it's not as big as some of the other ones I've done, but it was probably the most intimidating because these were a bunch of accountants. And
Mhm.
so they grilled me on every single line item that I had in it. And it took a long time, but at that point, they said, well, how come you charge so much? I said, because I'm confident that I'm going to get you the results that you're looking
Mhm.
for, because I've done my homework. I understand what you're trying to do. And I'm confident in the approach that I have. And in
Mhm.
the inside, I'm like, oh my God, please.
You're like, who's that guy saying that?
Yeah, exactly. But, but it's one of those things that got the contract.
Mhm.
Um, it went extremely well. And from that point on, I not only knew it, but I believed it, that this was what I was worth. This was what I could do for folks. And when somebody asked me, said, well, tell me about what we're doing. I said, I won't charge you a penny if it doesn't work because I know it's going to work.
Yeah.
So this is my price. And, you can try to negotiate with me, but I know you're going to get this 10x the value on this at least out of your investment.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
at first, that was really hard for me to believe that I could
Yeah.
actually do that and that I was worth that. And that's where you separate sales professionals from the folks that aren't going to
Mhm.
make it. That
Mhm.
maybe are more account managers or customer service, quite frankly, is they're
Yeah.
wonderful people. They care a lot, but when it comes to that point of saying, I'm worth this, my company's worth this value because of what
Mhm.
we do for you, they just they can't get over that hump. And
Yeah. It
that's a
is. It is
key to success.
intimidating that first time you have to submit a proposal for
Yep.
your own time and your own
Yeah.
company, something that
Hmm.
you own and not someone else. It's easy to submit a proposal on behalf of the company you work for, right?
Yeah.
But when it's you having to value your time and your expertise, there is intimidation when it
Totally.
comes to that, you know,
Well, and
and
in sales, so many people say, "Oh, Jack, we'd love to have you come help us out." Blah blah blah. We'll give you a percentage of our sales, and I tell them, "Thank you for that generous offer," but my answer is no. You have to
yeah,
share. Quite frankly, if they don't share in the pain, they're not going to be bought in. They
yeah,
will,
that's so
if
good. Yeah.
it, yeah, it's like I could do that and I'll get 2 or 3 times the money, which I've done in a couple of cases, but I stopped doing that because I said, they're not bought in. I'm going to walk
Yeah.
away and all this is going to fall apart.
Right.
I need you to feel this, invest in it. And so you're paying attention, because if you're not paying
Mhm.
attention, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. I think the other mistake that people make, and in my industry, you know, a lot of people will charge hourly. So
Right. Sure.
for their services, right? You
Hmm.
hire an event planner and they might
Yep.
give you a proposal for X number of hours. And I was
Hmm.
coaching someone recently. She's very new in the industry and she was having struggles with pricing. And so I said, okay, have you had to price anything so far? And she said, yeah, I
Right.
just submitted a proposal. Somebody wanted me to help them with a 40th birthday party. And so I said, okay, well, what did you charge? And I
Yeah.
said, you know, just be honest with me. If you charged $5 or
Right.
$5,000, I just need to know where we're starting from. And so she, you know, sort of sheepishly said 250. And I was
Hmm.
like, an hour? And she goes, no, for the whole project,
Oh, wow.
$250 for the whole
Yeah.
project.
Hmm.
And so, you know, I of course was like, well, we need to work on that.
Right. Sure.
But before I came to we need to work on that, what I had to do for her is divide that by how many hours she was expecting to work on that project. And we literally got to the place once you know, we did her hourly wage, the time, any, you know, expenses that she
Yeah.
was going to have,
Yeah.
all the things, right?
Yeah.
She was less than $7 an hour on this
Yeah.
project. And I
Sure.
said, you know, I just need you to see so you look at 250 as
Right.
one piece, right? But when you
Yeah.
start to break that down, it's not really 250,
Yeah.
you
No
know.
way. No way.
And when you have to start pricing yourself, those are mistakes I often see, you know, new business owners making. It
Well,
is hard.
absolutely. Because it's
Hmm.
one of those things too, when you think about it as a consultant or, really from a billable time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you broke it all down, if you can bill 50% of your time on an ongoing basis, in addition to admin, sales, and all the
Mm-hmm.
other things you have to do, that's that's the reality. You
Yeah.
know, people hear you charge 300, 350, whatever that number is per hour, go, oh my God, because they're thinking you're working full time doing that. Well,
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
what? That's not the reality. It's a little
Right.
bit different. So
Right.
you have
Right.
to think about those things and know that, you know, you need to A, value yourself, but know that you're going to drive far more value than that with the
Yeah.
client that you have.
Yeah, definitely. So many good sales tips. I can't wait for the Jack Kellyism book to
That's
come
right.
out with all
There's
of
lots.
when
There's,
come on, you got to get writing.
I
I
know.
wrote my book in 6 weeks. So I don't know what you're waiting
Oh,
around for.
I
Come
know.
on.
Believe
It's
me.
not like you have
Believe me.
nothing else
See,
going on in your
that's
life.
my next thing, right? Is that stopping the excuses and write the damn book. Excuse
Well,
the language.
now that I know that's on your to-do list, believe me,
Yeah.
every time I see you, I'll be
Okay,
like,
good.
so how's the book going?
How's the book
How's
going?
it
When I
coming?
can
How's
see
it
chapter
coming?
one.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So we share a common passion with the
Yeah.
Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We both serve
Yes.
on that board. You as
Yeah.
incoming chair, and I agreed because you are the chair to be your vice chair. Yes, so the intertwining careers of Nicole and Jack
Continue.
continue, but
Yeah.
but I know that that's an organization that is near and dear to your heart. And like me, you participated in the Man Woman of the Year
Yep.
campaign. I just interviewed Katie Temple, who was the 2019 Woman of the Year,
Yep.
and you are 2018 Man of the Year.
2018. That's right.
2018 Man of the Year.
Yep.
So congratulations on that. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
saying yes to that
Of course.
massive ask, right?
That was a
But I
big ask.
know that the yes came from a really personal
Hmm.
mission connection that you have with your
Yes.
mom and the loss
Yep.
of your mom ultimately.
Hmm.
So what has LLS meant to you in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, from going from something I never heard about to seeing another LinkedIn post about this thing called Man of the Year that I could do, to
Mm-hmm.
where I am today has been, an amazing journey. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest part about it for me personally, selfishly, is the thing I didn't know that was going to happen, and that's the effect I've had on other people. In
Mm-hmm.
their lives, and they're sharing their stories of their battle with disease, or their son's battle, their daughters, their moms, and just
Mm-hmm.
how appreciative they are for what we're doing. But that also has fueled me, quite frankly. This organization does incredible work, and as you and I have talked
Mm-hmm.
about, has a lot of work to do on the marketing side to
Mm-hmm.
raise
Yeah.
awareness, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the results are impressive. So I look at it from a business person standpoint. When I look at 48 of the last 54 FDA approved blood cancer treatments have been partly funded, in at least in some sort, by LLS. That's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an amazing track record over a two and a
Mm-hmm.
half year period. Each time I say it, I can't believe it. And then
Yeah.
so impressed by the chief scientific officer, I think is her official title, Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just blew me away when I had the opportunity to see her speak in New York. And just every single part of it has been positive. And then, of course, people like yourself and the other folks on the board, and the opportunity we have.
Mm-hmm.
We can always do more. Here's another Jack Kellyism.
Get
you
ready,
know,
folks. Get your
if
notebook out.
if you think you're thinking big, think bigger, right? So,
Uh-huh.
and that's something that I've really held on to, because my mom benefited from the Beat AML, acute myeloid leukemia campaign. The doctor told her when she first underwent treatment, if this had been 6 months ago, I wouldn't have had this treatment available
Mm.
for you. Mom lived an incredible 2 years after that, where she saw great grandchildren born, celebrated her 60th wedding anniversary with my dad, and her 80th birthday. I mean, it was, and it was, from what I recall, at least as an adult, the best time I ever had with my mom. She was so
Mm.
appreciative of everything she was given during that
Yeah.
time, of the experiences she had, and how much, um, she appreciated us, and she let us know every day. The other gift is, our family says I love you a hell of a lot more now than we ever did to each other. And,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, I can never pay back. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's very personal, but I also see it as something where progress can be made, and we can
Mm-hmm.
have an impact on that progress. And we're starting to see some new movement here in San Diego, thanks to you and
Yeah.
thanks to a lot of the team. There's some really exciting stuff going on, and I'm on a why not side when people ask me, should we ask this person? And it's like, why not? We've
Yeah.
got absolutely nothing to lose. We're just trying to cure cancer, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to ask that question anytime. So
Yeah. Well, having met Mrs. Kelly
mhm.
a few months before she passed, I know that
Yep.
she was incredibly proud of you and the
Mhm.
work that you had not only done on behalf of LLS, but I think just the family man that you are and the incredible dad that you are. So I'm pleased to and proud to know you as a friend for a very long time. And it's just such a delight to now be able to work alongside you for one of our passion projects of finding a cure for
Absolutely.
cancer. I mean, there's nothing,
Absolutely.
that's a small, tiny little task we've been charged with.
Yeah, it's just a
Let's
smart.
raise enough money, we find a cure
Right.
for cancer,
Right. And
but
then
we'll figure it out. We'll
we're gonna
figure it
get
out.
there. We're gonna get more and more people in
Yeah.
this community involved, and that's the exciting part is the reception we received. You and I were involved in an Ask to Illumina, and it
Mm-hmm.
went well, and
It did. Yeah.
that's just the beginning for us. And I really
Yeah.
think there's some great opportunity out there for us to make a big impact in this community.
Yeah. And I think to your point about the marketing of the organization, I mean, sadly, people don't know it until they need to know it,
Yep. Yep.
and when you look at other cancer organizations, Susan G. Komen, and why
Hmm.
does everyone know that, even though,
Yep.
I have,
Right.
I don't have breast cancer, knock
Right.
on wood, in my family, but yet I still
Yep.
know that brand.
Still
And
know
so
it. We all
you'll
do.
know it.
Yeah.
And so why is LLS kind of
Hmm.
falling behind when it comes to that?
Yeah.
For you and I, we see that as opportunity,
Yeah.
right? We see that as
Absolutely.
opportunity. So
Yeah.
we will change that. We
We
will
will
definitely
change that.
change that.
Absolutely.
Yes,
There's no reason why not.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, all right, Mr. Sales and Relationship Expert, you have been amazing. So
Appreciate it.
thank you so much, but we're going
Yeah.
to end with our rapid fire questions. Okay.
Okay.
So
Rock
these
and
are
roll.
just intended to be fun, no
Okay.
judgment, no right or wrong answer.
Oh God.
All
Here we
right. And
go.
I'm going to move
Yeah.
through them quickly. So don't
Okay.
panic if I have no response.
Okay.
All right. Title of your lifetime movie.
Um, keep it simple, stupid.
Okay. If you could change places with any celebrity right this minute, who would it be?
Who would it be? Boy, right this minute. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Maybe like Simon Cowell. He's got a fun job. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. When do you feel happiest?
You know what? As cheesy as it sounds, feel happiest when I'm hanging out with my kids and my family. So
Yeah,
it's just, they're getting older and they're going to be leaving the nest soon. So I love
I
every minute of it.
know.
Yeah.
Yep, I know. If you were running for politics, what would be your
Hmm.
biggest campaign promise?
My biggest print campaign promise.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's a heavy one, but it truly would be around equality for all.
Good. Okay.
It doesn't make sense any other way.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimate dinner party. Which four guests do you invite? Can be living, dead, character, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I would invite, um, Barack Obama.
Uh-huh.
Love to meet that man. I would invite Steve Garvey, as somewhat controversial. He was my idol growing up as a kid in LA, playing first base
Okay.
for the Dodgers. Um,
Okay.
I would I would invite. I got two more. I know one of them. What would be the other one? Um, I would invite the commissioner of baseball because I need to talk about what he's doing right now with baseball and get that figured out.
You have an agenda.
Have an agenda. The other person, if I could invite anybody and make that happen, it'd be my mom. So,
Oh, that's
yep.
perfect. Yep,
Yep.
perfect. All right, right this minute you have to get a tattoo,
Oh,
regardless of how you feel about him. Okay,
yep.
what do you get and why?
What would I get and why? I would get, gosh, that's a really good one. I would get something that, I maybe on my back that would be big, and it would be kind of a sunset. So it's sunset at the beach, because that's literally my happy place where I want to be. So,
Okay. Having known you as long as I have, that has surprised me, Jack. Okay, good for you. Just the scale, just the scale of it, just the
If I'm
whole,
gonna,
like,
I'm
yeah,
gonna boom.
not like
It's gonna,
something delicate on the wrist. You're like,
no
let's
way,
go for the whole
no way,
thing. Okay,
absolutely.
listen, like, rock on. I think that's amazing. Good for you.
Right.
All
Yep.
right, biggest pet peeve in business.
Oh, I said it when you asked what the key thing was. Is just be prompt.
Yep.
Be, you know,
Yep. Definitely.
respond when you're supposed to respond and get
Yep.
back to people. It's really all it
Exactly.
is. Yep.
Exactly. What is your wish for the next generation?
Oh, um, my wish for the next generation is that they're problem solvers and that they understand that there's, Don Henley song when you're talking about a problem or a situation, there's your point of view, there's my point of view, and there's the
Mm-hmm.
cold hard truth. And let's deal with the cold hard truth
Yeah.
and figure something out, and solve the problem versus
Mm-hmm.
just putting your flag in the sand and not moving from it.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. When does your light shine the brightest?
When I'm with people, without a
Yep.
doubt.
Definitely.
It's where I get my energy. And
Yep.
it's this Martha Jean, my mom legacy is, I am a believer people are inherently good. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite things, quite frankly, as more of an extroverted person is to learn about, find an introverted person in the room, get to know them, and kind of see their personality come out. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What
Mhm.
is your big ask, either personally or professionally right now? And how can we help you?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I guess it's, boy, what's my big ask? I feel like I got a lot going on right now as far as big ask go. Um, my big ask, I'll keep it to, you know, um, I guess personally it's related to what I just talked about is we need to all focus on solving problems and communicating with each other
Mm-hmm.
and honoring relationships. It comes right back to that
Mm-hmm.
because we're not right now, in my
Yeah.
opinion, not enough. There's a
Yeah.
lot of great people out there. Unfortunately, the smaller percentage of those that are not or seem to get all the attention. We
Yeah.
have got to hold our leadership responsible to solving problems and focusing on what's in the best interest of the people, not just of
Yes.
themselves. So,
Oh, it's all good, Jack. It's all good.
yeah,
Well, thank you for saying yes to my big ask of asking you to
of
be a
course.
guest on the podcast. What's the best way for people to stay connected with you or follow you on
Yeah,
social
LinkedIn is
media?
best.
Or okay,
LinkedIn. Yep. And it's Jack Kelly SD on LinkedIn. So that would be great. Would love to connect.
awesome. Well, thank you very, very much. I've enjoyed our time together and getting to know you even better. So thanks
Well,
so
of
much,
course.
Jack.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Okay.